Wait, hold up, stop everything! There's a Futurama game? I've only got one thing to say to that!
Shut up and take my money!
Whether you were aware of it or not, back in 2003, a game based on Matt Groening's popular TV show was released. No, not that one!
Oh!
Futurama the game. This offering sees you take control of Fry, Bender, and Leela as you embark on a mission to save the Earth from evil mom's arthritic clutches.
So, is it good news, everyone?
Okay, so first off, if you're expecting a game in which you can explore the Futurama universe freely, visit old haunts, and interact with series regulars,
Bam.
well, this isn't it. In truth, this game's progression is strictly linear, and it ultimately conveys itself as a far smaller experience than the likes of the Simpsons Hit and Run. There are in fact very few locations that are recognisable in this game, and if it weren't for the constant character commentary throughout, for the majority of the game it probably wouldn't feel like Futurama at all. In all honesty, the character commentary is what makes the game stand out. While some of the gameplay may be a little uninspired and clunky, it nonetheless manages to maintain the humour of the series. Interestingly, this was released after the first cancellation of the TV series back in 2003, and is considered a lost episode by the show creators. Indeed, as an episode of the series, it's a fun addition to the franchise. That said, I can't help but feel that this is perhaps something of a wasted opportunity. A game in which you can hop aboard a spaceship and visit various planets a la Ratchet and Clank would probably have suited the sci-fi series more appropriately. What's more, many of the series regulars are absent from the game, including major characters Amy Wong, Kif, and Zach Brannigan. Hermes' voice actor Phil Lamar was also excluded from the game, but they managed to sneak a clever cameo in there by adorning Hermes with a brain slug, not only shoehorning in a subtle appearance, but also referencing the show.
Thank you. It was cold down there on the floor.
Clever stuff. We begin the game at Planet Express, where the professor enters wearing a funky sombrero and announces he's sold the company to Mom.
Also, why are you wearing that funky hat?
What? Oh, this? No reason.
Okay, so can we just talk about his appearance here for a second?
Oh my, no.
What did they do to you?
It's a little strange seeing these characters in a 3D form, considering up until this point, they've mostly only been seen two-dimensionally from the side. Bender's arguably the best-looking model due to his simplistic geometric design, but the likes of Fry and Professor look a little unusual, and from certain angles, they can look deeply, deeply unsettling.
You're the devil.
Leela looks okay, I guess. My only major complaint is nothing to do with her model as such, but the colour of her hair. It looks more of a ghastly pink colour than purple.
Ghastly.
Weirdly, the colorization is much like her Toynami model, which parenthetically always confused me as they managed to colour her superhero variant Clobberella just Jim Dandy.
In case you hadn't already noticed, I'm a Futurama nerd and proud.
Anyway, with her acquisition of Planet Express, Mom now owns over half of the Earth, making her its supreme ruler.
She's like the Disney of the 31st century, I guess.
She enslaves the citizens of Earth and imposes a curfew, which sees hoverbot death troopers patrol the streets of New York.
As captain, I propose we get the hell out of here.
The crew's plan to escape is scuppered by the discovery that their ship has been destroyed. While Leela and Bender set to work on repairing the ship, the professor gives Fry a task of his own. Of course, much like the Simpsons games, there's so much scope with Futurama. Not only is it obviously set in the future, but there's a whole wealth of fun and interesting characters and locations to explore.
I can't wait to find out what my first mission is.
Find a hammer.
Inspired.
The hammer!
After being crushed and killed by some falling debris, Fry is duplicated and essentially brought back to life by the Professor's Reanimator. The Reanimator cleverly explains how the characters respawn, and the number of lives you have will increase every time you collect 25 of a character's collectible. Fry collects US dollars, Bender collects his birthstone Robobium, Zoidberg collects dead fish, and Leela collects, gold bars.
Because we all know Leela likes her gold bars.
It's weirdly refreshing to see an explanation for character respawns, and the fact that it looks like a toaster makes it all the more amusing. The professor then asks Fry to find his tools that are all dotted around the Planet Express building.
I can't fix the ship without them.
Okay, so it's time to find some essential items, such as a hairdryer and a mug. Yeah, you've just been palmed off with pointless busywork. Let's just get this level over with, shall we?
It's a pretty basic item hunt level, whose only saving grace is the level design.
Fry, do you mind?
You merely have to search the building for the items using your trusty ultra-futuristic hammer. It's pretty uninspired, but you know what, it's actually one of my favourite levels, if only because it represents a near-perfect replica of the Planet Express headquarters. Sure, you can't visit every room seen in the TV show, but there is an abundance of references to classic episodes, and a number of recognisable areas too. The only thing that spoils the illusion for me is the lack of a door adjacent to the employee lounge couch, but this is only a minor grievance. Once the tools are retrieved and the ship repaired, the professor reveals he doesn't have a backup dark matter engine after having pawned it for a gun, which he gives to Fry, who he then sends sent on a mission to retrieve the engine. Since hoverbots are patrolling the streets, Fry needs to take the sewers.
Or we could just wait until the curfew's over. Just a suggestion, take it or leave it.
What about the sewer mutants? I gave you a gun. What do you want, a flowered dress? Now stop being a wussy and get going.
I love that there's absolutely no objection from Leela here. I guess the brutal massacre of her people is just a small price to pay.
Fortunately, however, the mutants you do encounter aren't remotely anything like the mutants in the series. I mean, they don't appear to be sentient or anything. They're like waddling amphibious potato men who try to bitch slap you to death.
Owie, owie, owie!
Most formidable. And their deaths are really quite strange. They all just seem to keel over with a pathetic whine.
Oh wow, I'm sorry. Gee whiz, I sure feel awful.
The only way they'd be less threatening is if you juxtapose their weird-ass waddling with the Pingu theme.
I don't even know why I made that, okay? Just don't question me.
Most levels have this linear progression that sees the path behind you close off as you progress, meaning you'd better find those collectibles while you can. Speaking of which, in every level there's a certain number of captured Nibelonians. Break their cages open and they teleport away. Wait, if they can teleport, why do they need freeing?
Makes you think.
Find and rescue all the nibblers in a level and you're rewarded with the FMV sequences from that level, as well as the level's music and interstitial loading screens.
I told you we would reward you.
And just slightly off topic, I don't know if it was something to do with my game capture settings or what, but in my recording of this, the little nibbler icon's pupils are so faint, it's actually starting to creep me out a little. It was in this level I also noticed how awkward the platforming is in this game. It's hard to explain, but the jump feels off to me. It's a really fast jump that's very easy to miss time, particularly when hopping across these swimming crocodiles.
Don't fall off, 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 don't fall off. Oh, thank God for that.
Find your way through the sewer maze, and eventually we wind up at a creepy underground subway. The first batch of levels with Fry is actually really strange to me, in that arguably they comprise some of the toughest levels in the game. Indeed, the game bizarrely seems to get easier as it progresses. These early levels also maintain a really dark, brooding atmosphere. The subway, for example, is littered with laser gun-wielding terrorists and bombs. Which really makes me question, is the underground travel really that much safer? Really? Before long, we reach the decaying ruins of old New York, which is by far the eeriest level in the entire game, filled to the brim with rocket launchers, more gun-wielding weirdos, and exploding warthogs. Of course, it's genuinely terrifying having one of these pigs appear out of nowhere when you least expect it.
That's all, folks.
Luckily, by this point, you have two guns at your disposal. Flicking through your inventory of weapons is made somewhat irritating, however, by the presence of a now frankly redundant hammer. Yes, he kept it!
Just in case of any emergency carpentry, I guess.
It's also kind of disappointing you don't get to visit Fry's old house in this level, but you do see Leela's parents' house, even though it really shouldn't be there as they live in the sewers, but whatever, I'll accept it. Eventually we make it to the red light district of New York, home to robot hookers,
Oh, yeah, baby.
suicide booths, and a new weapon, the machine gun. Fight your way through hordes of robots, and you then make it uptown, where you have to face some hoverbots. You know, the hoverbots we went underground to avoid?
But that was a waste of time.
I'm also somewhat confused by this. I mean, the curfew was on the evening, and this level seems to take place during the day, so why is everything trying to kill me again? Regardless, this level is one of the most visually appealing to me, simply because it's actually the only well-lit level that sees you explore New York on foot, which, let's face it, is pretty disappointing. Before long, we come across something called a chicken walker, which is essentially a walking turret. It walks by itself, and you spend the entirety of the next level staring through a target screen, shooting at everything in sight for collectibles. Annoyingly, you cannot backtrack, and your vision feels so frustratingly restricted, you find yourself constantly panning the visor back and forth looking for hidden nibblers and off-screen enemies. Eventually, we reach the pawn shop, which is apparently still open for business, despite the hordes of robots patrolling the streets.
Hey, I heard you were coming.
That's dedication to a job, yo. Give that guy a raise.
We then cut to Fry, miraculously returning to Planet Express with the engine. I don't know whether he travelled underground, overground, but we made it, everyone.
Can I get a whoop whoop? Yeah, close enough.
And with that, the Planet Express crew make their escape.
So I take it we're just gonna leave Hermes to perish then, yeah?
Sweet something of someplace.
Poor fella.
Mom puts her plan into motion, and upon witnessing the crew's escape, it's revealed that she's turned the Earth into a warship. Because why the fuck not? The only drawback being she needs a more powerful engine to actually get it to move. Obviously.
More power!
Aye, Mom, sir.
Larry! What the hell are you doing with your brother's voice?
Anyway, Mom and her three sons take her ship to an asteroid where they find Sal at his junkyard and request a large enough engine.
Dive.
Holy Jesuses!
Sal informs Mom that she needs to find the guy who invented the dark matter engine, none other than the Professor himself. After the bad guys manage to secure the Planet Express ship in a suck ray, Bender drops to safety.
Sort of.
Fortunately, the reanimator now works for Bender too, and it's his job to locate and disable the suck ray. Now, despite Bender's idle persona, one would imagine he would be one of the more complex characters to play as. You know, because he's a robot and everything. And since he's a bending unit, you'd imagine he'd be one of the most flexible, surely. Bizarrely, quite the opposite proves to be the case. Bender is, in actuality, the most basic of the main ensemble, and his levels seem to be inspired by the likes of Crash Bandicoot, right down to the spin attack.
Perhaps we should call him Crash Bandicoot. I'm sorry, forgive me, everyone.
He also takes a leaf out of Lilo's book and can perform a butt stomp move, as well as a simple charge attack. Both Bender and Leela can collect charge-ups too, which allow for some limited powerful attacks.
I'm better than you!
But really, the basic spin attack is the one you'll wind up using most often, and as a result, the Bender levels just come across as pretty tedious. Without the voice acting and awesome soundtrack, these levels are pretty bland. The locations in this game comprise a major issue I have with the game overall. They're just not that interesting to explore. I mean, this is Futurama. We could be traveling the universe delivering packages, but nope! We spend the first few levels underground and the Bender levels wandering through some barren canyon.
What fun, can't wait.
It would have been nice to utilize Bender's extendable arms at some point too, but oh well, I guess. What's more, Bender doesn't actually bend anything. What a wasted opportunity.
I mean, come on, bending is his middle name. Literally.
There's also a strangely substantial amount of quicksand in this game, despite never making an appearance in the series. Before entering the mines, we need to take care of Mom's son Igna by avoiding his gunfire and activating a conveniently placed detonator that triggers some equally conveniently placed explosives.
If you see Mommy, tell her I killed you!
Once inside, we find ourselves scurrying down a mine shaft in another level that's absolutely nothing like Crash Bandicoot at all. Crash Bandicoot handled platforming a hell of a lot better than this does, and that game is 7 years older.
My story's a lot like yours, only more interesting because it involves robots.
Maneuvering through the mine facility is one of the most boring levels in the game, and it's not helped by the lack of music. Mom's son Larry attempts to recycle you into seatbelts while you simply have to avoid every obstacle along the conveyor belt. Once we've done that, we make it to the outskirts of the junkyard, known as Red Rock Creek.
Big red rocks.
Where we encounter a creepy old abandoned ship. I'm not certain what the purple stuff is, but hey, at least it's not quicksand for once. It's just another one of many liquid pits of instant death.
Variety.
Navigate the ship and we eventually reach the junkyard. This level involves having to cross some junkyard apparatus and fight off a number of worker robots. It's nothing all that original, and that's why I have very little to say about it, but then things get mildly more interesting as we reach Mom's third son, Walt.
Now I get to kill you.
Here, Walt occupies a tank situated over a lake of, big shock, quicksand. Fortunately, there are two conveniently placed guns pointed directly at his tank.
Wow, I sure am lucky they happen to be there.
The left gun disables Walt's shield, while the other one can be used to take him out while the shield is down. With Walt out of the way, Bender can disable the suck ray. Although I'd been out in that desert for so long, I'd genuinely forgotten that's what the objective was. Surely Mom would have boarded the ship by now. Anyway, with everyone apparently safe, the Professor advises his crew to seek out his former mentor, skilled inventor Adoy, who lives in the corner of the universe, only they don't have enough fuel to reach him. At that moment, Mom seizes and boards the ship. What took you? And decapitates the Professor for the blueprints to his dark matter engine, which surely renders the previous few levels on the asteroid completely pointless. I mean, the idea was to free them from Mom, right? But she got what she wanted anyway?
Oh, who the hell cares, as long as we're away from that barren wasteland.
Mom then hurls the Planet Express ship and its crew into the sun, which looks disturbingly like El Dorado.
Ugh, the PTSD is real.
Yes!
Everybody on 3. 1, 2, 3.
While on the sun, Leela accepts the task of freeing its people from the clutches of a self-proclaimed sun god and his army of skeleton robots. You know, just while we're here.
So we've gone from wandering around some barren wasteland to wandering around another barren wasteland. Jolly good.
Leela's gameplay is more satisfying than Bender's in my opinion. Leela's agility means she can perform backflips and rolls to aid her combat, which consist of standard kicks and punches. That's not to say that the fighting doesn't get more than a little repetitive. The majority of enemies aren't too taxing in these levels, but these guys... Oh sweet Lord Jesus, they just appear without any warning. If you thought exploding pigs were annoying, these guys are something else.
Hey, they're still called suicide bombers if they're already dead. I lose sleep over shit like this.
So anyway, long story short, the next few levels see you journey through the left and right wings of the temple in search of light artifacts that, when placed in the right places, emit a beam of light, which, when joined, eventually gain you access to the inner temple via the courtyard. Did you get all that? The gameplay isn't exactly horrific, but it's not all that interesting either.
Who knew this sun could be such an ironically dull place?
Not only are there bone bots about, but also rather confused-looking lava men who look and act much like the mutants.
What are you, cousins?
Also, much of the time they just seem to stand around and shrug their shoulders, as though they were given no direction whatsoever and have no clue what the fuck is going on. What am I here for again?
Yes, you're supposed to be killing me, you molten moron!
Once we access the inner temple, Leela's agility is put to the test as the majority of the level sees you having to maneuver through an obstacle course of booby traps. Methinks somebody didn't want me around. Eventually, we face the so-called sun god, which merely sees you evade his attacks as you collect and replace the light artifact as before. This time he's taken down by the beam of light they emit, prompting Leela to question his immortality. Following his defeat, the crew are rewarded with the dark matter fuel they need to get to planet Bogad to find a Doi.
I can't imagine what kind of disgusting, foul creatures we'll find here.
Hello.
While there, they bump into Zoidberg, who's on vacation or something, I don't know.
This is so unlikely.
As for a Doi, he's a neat and funny little character, and it kinda surprises me he was never seen in the series.
But there's nothing we can do about it now. So it's a good thing you came to me.
This guy's not making any sense. Can I kill him? Please?
He introduces us to the Time Tunneler, an invention that can send the crew back in time to prevent Mom's usurpation of Earth. The only problem is, you need to charge it first, using a generator which is situated at the end of a path laden with, yep, you guessed it, quicksand.
I know. It was a terrible place to build the generator.
The time machine itself has a hand crank, meaning time can be rewound without the generator, but only for as long as you turn the handle.
Still following.
Long story short, it's up to Zoidberg and this alien horse creature to race to the generator in what is one of the most fast-paced and fun levels in the game. Indeed, the parts where the frame rate doesn't drop horribly are great, and should he fail, Leela can just rewind time.
Zoidberg pulls the lever! Hey!
Zoidberg activates the generator and the crew heads back in time to stop Mom.
Well, at least now we know who trashed our ship.
Just as Professor is about to sign over the company, Fry, Bender and Leela come to the rescue, only to fall into one of Mom's traps and be used as target practice for the giant robot Destructor. The last 3 levels see you help Bender, Leela and Fry make their escape. First, Bender needs to fight his way through some fellow robots.
3, 2, 1, activate.
Leela's level is based more so around stealth than combat, which is fortunate for her, I guess. I like that Fry never thinks once to lend her one of his guns. And speaking of Fry, it seems as though he's finally ditched that hammer.
Well, it's about time.
Not only that, he's ditched the guns too.
What? Oh.
We're dead.
Fortunately, we're rewarded with a new gun after completing one of several number sequence puzzles.
I'm afraid we need to use math.
Finally, I found a real-world use for that GCSE.
These are timed challenges that increase in difficulty as you progress, and if you fail, the floor opens, sending you plummeting to your death.
Bit harsh. Glad my school exam wasn't like that. Kinda reminds me of Abe's fatal game of Simon Says.
Simon didn't say that! Eventually, Fry makes it to the balcony, where he must take out the ultimate villain of the game, Destructor? Did I miss something? Oh well, okay. I guess the big bot makes more of a satisfying final battle than Mom would have. Interestingly, Mom isn't seen in-game at all, despite being the main antagonist. I really feel there should be at least one level in which you attempt to take down her massive Mom head ship, perhaps as a Planet Express ship or something. But nope! Once Destructor is destroyed, the Professor simply knocks her over slightly.
What a climax! Wow, game better slow down. One can party too hard.
The reanimator is dismantled and the crew crushed. The Professor then refuses to sign Planet Express over to Mom, but she winds up convincing him with one final offering.
How about if I throw in this hat?
The game then cleverly comes full circle as it's implied it takes place in a time loop, a lot like the series itself. A humorous ending that makes up for several hours of mind-numbing mediocrity. Much like the series itself, this game is also home to some secret and obscure Easter eggs. some of which have only been uncovered and documented recently, mostly thanks to a guy called JFoxRocks on Discord.
All your days are beyond us.
Those interested in the likes of these should check out Oddheaders videos and also seek out Alma Elmer's channel for info on how to access them. The Planet Express Easter egg requires some extremely specific activity to activate it, while repeatedly opening and closing this bin opens a secret head museum filled with caricatures of the developers, some of which can be activated in some way themselves. The only one of these many Easter eggs I managed to find without any assistance is a secret room in Old New York, which I've talked about before in a couple of videos. Playing the jukebox melody behind the bar reveals the nibbler, but if you repeat the tune again and return to the subway where you started the level, you reveal these weird messages. I still don't know what the hell they are, but it's pretty intriguing, don't you think?
And the crowd goes wild!
Okay, so this game isn't all bad. The controls are decent, even if the platforming is a little imprecise, and the story is satisfactory as one standalone episode of the show. But if you're expecting something that delves deep into the world of Futurama like the Simpsons games, this might be something of a disappointment. The character voiceovers are fantastic as always, with John DiMaggio, Katie Sagal, and the great Billy West reprising their roles as the protagonists, and Christopher Ting's soundtrack is very fitting too. But despite its good humor, voice acting, and soundtrack, Futurama the game is a pretty average experience, and is hardly light years ahead of its time.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Bender?
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Thank you for your time.
Die!